Don't cry, mister. You can borrow my mom. She gives really good hugs. The words came from a 6-year-old boy standing before the most feared man in Ridgewood, Tennessee. Marcus "Ghost" Thompson. A man who'd made grown men beg for mercy looked down at this child with tears still wet on his scarred face. In his pocket was a letter. A goodbye letter. He'd come to this park to end everything. But this boy with the missing front tooth and the crumpled tissue in his tiny hand was about to change everything. Before we continue, I'd love to know where in the world you're watching from today. Drop your city in the comments below and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. This story will stay with you long after it ends. Now let's continue. Marcus hadn't cried in 40 years. Not when his wife walked out. Not when his daughter told him she hated him. Not even when he buried her 3 years ago, standing alone at her grave, while rain soaked through his leather jacket. But today on this bench in Ridgewood Memorial Park, something broke. He couldn't stop the tears, couldn't control the shaking in his hands, couldn't silence the voice in his head that kept repeating his daughter's last words. "You were never my father. You were just a ghost." That's how he got his name. Not from enemies he'd terrorized, not from the men who feared him, from his own daughter. Emma had given him that nickname when she was 15, and it had stuck ever since. Ghost. Because that's all he'd ever been to her. A shadow. An absence. A man who showed up with expensive gifts instead of time, with money instead of love. And now she was gone. Marcus pulled the envelope from his jacket pocket. His hands trembled as he looked at it. He'd written the letter last night sitting alone in his empty apartment. 3 pages explaining why he couldn't do this anymore, why the guilt was too heavy, why he deserved to join his daughter in whatever came after this life. Today was the 5th anniversary of Emma's death. Today was the day Marcus had chosen to end his own. He'd picked this park because it was the last place he'd been happy with Emma. 23 years ago, when she was 5 years old, he'd brought her here on one of his rare visits. She'd laughed on the swings. She'd held his hand. She'd called him Daddy. It was his last good memory. Now it would be his last memory period. Mr. Marcus's head snapped up. A boy stood in front of him. 6 years old, maybe 7. Brown hair sticking up in every direction. A red t-shirt with a dinosaur on it. And eyes, big brown eyes, looking at him without fear. "Go away, kid." Marcus's voice came out rough. Broken. The boy didn't move. "You're crying," the boy said. Not a question. An observation. "My daddy cried too, before he went to heaven." Something in Marcus's chest twisted. "Kid," I said, "go away. Find your parents. My mommy's over there." The boy pointed vaguely behind him. "She's watching. She always watches. But you looked really sad, and my mommy says when someone's sad, you should help them." Marcus wiped his face with the back of his hand. "I don't need help. That's what my daddy used to say too." The boy pulled something from his pocket. A crumpled tissue. He held it out to Marcus like it was a precious gift. "Here, you can have this. I didn't use it yet." Marcus stared at the tissue. Such a small thing. Such a stupid, meaningless gesture. So why did his throat tighten? "What's your name, kid?" "Ethan." "What's yours?" "Marcus." "That's a cool name." Ethan tilted his head. "Why are you so sad, Marcus?" No one had asked him that in years. No one cared enough to ask. "It's complicated. My mommy says that when she doesn't want to talk about stuff." Ethan climbed onto the bench without invitation, sitting right next to Marcus. His little legs dangled off the edge. But she always feels better after she talks. Maybe you'll feel better too. Marcus almost laughed. Almost. Kid, you don't want to hear my problems. I'm a good listener. My teacher says so. She gave me a sticker that said, "Good listener," and I put it on my lunchbox. This time, Marcus did laugh. A short, bitter sound. But something about this boy, this fearless, innocent child, made the weight on his chest feel slightly lighter. I did something bad, Marcus said. A long time ago. And someone I loved got hurt because of it. Ethan nodded seriously. Did you say sorry? She's not around anymore for me to say sorry. Oh. Ethan was quiet for a moment. Is she in heaven too? Like my daddy? Marcus's jaw tightened. Yeah, she's in heaven. Then you can still say sorry. Ethan said it like it was the most obvious thing in the world. I talk to my daddy all the time. Mommy says he can hear me from heaven. I tell him about school and my toys and my friend Lucas who picks his nose. Marcus looked at this child, this innocent, untouched soul who still believed in heaven and talking to the dead and tissues fixing everything. Your mom's probably worried, Marcus said. You should go back. She's coming over now. Ethan pointed. Marcus looked up and saw her. She was walking toward them with purpose but without panic. Brown hair pulled back, wearing scrubs a nurse maybe, pretty in a tired sort of way, the kind of pretty that came from working too hard and sleeping too little. Her eyes met his, and Marcus saw it, the flash of recognition. She knew who he was. Everyone in Ridgewood knew who he was. He waited for the fear, the disgust, the quick grab and run most parents did when their kids got too close to the town monster. But she just kept walking. Steady. Calm. Ethan, honey, I told you to stay where I could see you. You can see me here, Mommy. I'm helping Marcus. He's sad. The woman's gaze shifted to Marcus. He expected judgment. He got something else. Something that looked almost like understanding. I'm sorry if he bothered you, she said. He does this. Finds people who look like they need someone. He didn't bother me. Marcus was surprised to find he meant it. Mommy, can Marcus come to dinner? He needs a friend. Ethan, everyone needs a friend. You said so. You said that's why we bring casseroles to Mrs. Patterson, even though she's grumpy. The woman closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them, there was a small smile on her face. I'm Rachel. I'm sorry he's very... Direct, Marcus finished. That's one word for it. They stood there in awkward silence. Marcus could feel the letter burning in his pocket. He could feel the weight of what he'd planned to do pressing against his chest. But he could also feel something else. Something he hadn't felt in years. Curiosity. Your son, Marcus said slowly. He mentioned his father, said he's in heaven. Rachel's smile faltered. My husband David passed away 2 years ago. Cancer. I'm sorry. Thank you. She said it the way people do when they've said it 1,000 times. Automatic. Protective. Daddy was a firefighter, Ethan announced proudly. He saved people from fires. He was a hero. I'm sure he was. Are you a hero too? Ethan looked at Marcus's leather jacket, at the patches and worn leather. You look like a superhero, or maybe a villain, but a cool villain. Ethan, Rachel's face flushed, but Marcus just shook his head. He's not wrong. I've been more villain than hero. Something flickered in Rachel's eyes. Not fear, not pity. Recognition. We all have our chapters we're not proud of, she said quietly. Marcus studied her. This woman who should have grabbed her son and run, who should have called him a monster and warned her child to stay away from men like him. Instead, she was looking at him like he was just a person, like he was worth talking to. Coffee, The word came out before Marcus could stop it. I mean, there's a shop down the street. If you're not, we'd love to. Ethan pumped his fist. Yes. Can I get hot chocolate? Rachel smiled at her son, then looked back at Marcus. Are you sure people in this town, they talk? Let them talk. Marcus stood up. The letter in his pocket crinkled. I've given them 40 years of things to talk about. One coffee won't matter. But as they walked toward the park entrance, Marcus realized something had shifted. The letter felt different now. Heavier. Like a decision he was no longer certain about. A 6-year-old boy with a crumpled tissue had just done what 40 years of living couldn't. He'd given Marcus a reason to wait one more day. The coffee shop went dead silent when Marcus walked through the door. Every conversation stopped. Every head turned. A mother pulled her daughter closer. An elderly man's cup froze halfway to his lips. Marcus was used to this. The fear, the whispers, the way people cleared space around him like he was radioactive. What he wasn't used to was Rachel walking in right beside him, her hand resting casually on Ethan's shoulder. Table for 3, Rachel said to the stunned teenager behind the counter, and a hot chocolate with extra whipped cream for this one. The teenager nodded mutely, her eyes bouncing between Rachel and Marcus, like she was watching a bomb about to detonate. They found a table in the corner. Marcus sat with his back to the wall, old habit never broken, while Rachel and Ethan settled across from him. Does that happen everywhere you go? Rachel asked quietly. Pretty much. Doesn't it bother you? Used to. Marcus shrugged. Now it's just background noise. Ethan was oblivious to the tension. He grabbed a sugar packet and started building a tower with it. Marcus, do you have a motorcycle? Your jacket looks like a motorcycle jacket. I do. Is it loud? Very. Cool. Ethan grinned, showing his missing front tooth. My daddy had a truck. It was red. Mommy still has it, but she doesn't drive it because it makes her cry. Ethan. Rachel's voice was gentle, but warning. What? It's true. Marcus watched this exchange. The easy love between mother and son. The way Rachel's face softened whenever she looked at Ethan, even when he was saying too much. It reminded him of what he'd missed, what he'd given up. How old are you? Marcus asked Ethan. 6 3/4, almost 7. That's an important age. I know. Ethan nodded seriously. That's when you can ride a 2-wheel bike without training wheels. Lucas still has training wheels, but I don't tell him because I don't want to be mean. Rachel caught Marcus's eye and smiled. He's got a lot of opinions. I can tell. Marcus, did you have a kid? Ethan asked suddenly. Because you seem like you could be a daddy. You're big and you have a jacket like my daddy's friend who rides motorcycles. The question hit Marcus like a fist to the chest. Ethan? Rachel started. It's fine. Marcus held up a hand. Yeah, kid. I had a daughter. Where is she? She's in heaven, like your daddy. Ethan's expression shifted. The playfulness drained away, replaced by something older and wiser than any 6-year-old should possess. Oh. He was quiet for a moment. That's really sad. I bet you miss her a lot. Every day. What was her name? Emma. Ethan repeated it softly. Emma. That's pretty. He reached across the table and patted Marcus's scarred knuckles with his tiny hand. I bet Emma and my daddy are friends in heaven. They probably hang out and talk about us. Marcus stared at this child. This strange, fearless, impossibly kind child. You know something, kid, you're not like other 6-year-olds. My mommy says I'm special. Ethan made air quotes with his fingers. But she means good special, not weird special. Rachel laughed softly. Most of the time. The teenager arrived with their drinks: hot chocolate for Ethan, black coffee for Marcus, and a latte for Rachel. The teenager set everything down without making eye contact and retreated quickly. "So," Rachel wrapped her hands around her cup, "you said you've been more villain than hero. Care to elaborate? You know who I am. I know your reputation. That's not the same thing." Marcus studied her. "You're not afraid of me." "Should I be? Most people are. Most people judge books by covers." Rachel took a sip of her latte. "I'm a nurse. I've learned that the scariest-looking patients are sometimes the gentlest, and the nicest-looking ones are sometimes the cruelest." "What kind of nurse?" "ICU. Night shift." She smiled wryly. "I've seen things that would make your tattoos look like sunshine and rainbows." Marcus almost smiled. Almost. "My husband used to say everyone deserves a chance to be seen as who they are, not who they've been." Rachel met his eyes. He worked at a crisis center, talked to people on their worst days, helped them find reasons to stay. The words hit something deep inside Marcus. Reasons to stay. The letter felt heavier in his pocket. "He sounds like a good man." "The best," Rachel's voice caught slightly. "Cancer's a terrible thief. Takes the good ones while the bad ones keep on breathing." "Mommy, that's not nice," Ethan said through a mouthful of whipped cream. "You're right, sweetheart. I'm sorry." "Besides," Ethan added, looking at Marcus, "Marcus isn't bad. He's just sad. There's a difference." The table went quiet. Marcus looked at this boy, this child, who saw through every wall he'd ever built. "How do you know I'm not bad, kid?" "Because bad people don't cry," Ethan said simply. "Bad people hurt people and don't care. You were crying. That means you care. So you're not bad. You're just having a hard time." Marcus turned to Rachel. "Where did you find this kid?" "Born that way." Rachel ruffled Ethan's hair. "His daddy was the same. Saw the best in everyone, even when everyone else couldn't." Something tightened in Marcus's chest. This family, this broken little family that had lost its cornerstone, was showing him more kindness in 1 hour than anyone had shown him in years. And he was a stranger. A dangerous stranger with a reputation for violence and a past soaked in blood. Why weren't they running, "I should go"? Marcus pushed back from the table. "Already?" Ethan's face fell. "But you didn't finish your coffee." "I've got things to do." "What things, Ethan?" Rachel's voice was soft but firm, but Ethan wasn't done. "Will you come back to the park? Maybe tomorrow." Marcus paused. The question hung in the air like a challenge. Say no. Walk away. Finish what you started. But those brown eyes were looking at him with such hope, such innocent expectation, that Marcus heard himself say, "Maybe." "That's not a no." Ethan pumped his fist again. "Mommy," he said, "maybe?" "That's almost like yes." Rachel stood extending her hand to Marcus. "It was nice meeting you, Marcus. Whatever reputation this town has given you, I have a feeling it's not the whole story." Marcus shook her hand. Her grip was firm, steady. "You're wrong about that," he said. "The reputation is earned." "Maybe, but people can change." She smiled slightly. "That's what David always believed. That's what I'm trying to teach Ethan." Marcus nodded once, then turned and walked out of the coffee shop. The whispers started up again before the door even closed behind him. He climbed onto his motorcycle, the familiar rumble drowning out the world. As he pulled away from the curb, he caught sight of Ethan's face in the coffee shop window. The boy was waving. Marcus didn't wave back, but he didn't look away either. That night, Marcus sat alone in his apartment staring at the letter on his coffee table. 3 pages. A lifetime of regrets condensed into 3 pages. He should have done it today. That was the plan. Go to the park. Say goodbye to the last good memory. End the pain. But that boy, that stupid, fearless, impossibly kind boy with his crumpled tissue and his questions that cut right through every defense Marcus had ever built. You're not bad. You're just having a hard time. Marcus laughed bitterly. A hard time, that's what you called being late for work, not 40 years of violence and a dead daughter who died hating you. His phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen. Unknown number. Yeah, Ghost. The voice on the other end was familiar. Too familiar. Thought you were dead, old man. Marcus's blood went cold. Viper. So you remember me. Good. That makes this easier. Marcus stood up, every muscle tensing. Victor Viper Reyes, current president of the Hellsangels. The man who'd taken over after Marcus left 5 years ago. The man who believed Marcus had stolen $200,000 from the club. What do you want? What I've always wanted, Ghost, my money. I told you 15 years ago. The money was seized in the raid. It's gone. And I told you I don't believe you. Viper's voice hardened. Funny thing, Ghost. We got word you've been spending time in Ridgewood. Cute little town, cute little coffee shop. And today you were spotted with a woman and her kid. Marcus's grip on the phone tightened. They're nobody, just people I ran into. See, that's what I thought too. But then I did some digging. Nurse named Rachel Mitchell, widow, works the night shift at Mercy General, lives on Maple Street. Son named Ethan, 6 years old, goes to Ridgewood Elementary. Viper, here's what's gonna happen, Ghost. You're gonna get me my money. $200,000. You've got 1 week. I don't have it. Then you'd better find it. Viper's voice dropped to a hiss. Because if you don't, that pretty little nurse and her kid are gonna learn what happens to people who associate with thieves. The line went dead. Marcus stood frozen in his apartment, the phone still pressed to his ear. The letter sat on the coffee table. 3 pages of goodbye. But now there was something else. Something he hadn't felt in years. Rage. And underneath the rage, somewhere deep in the darkness that had consumed him for so long, a spark of something almost forgotten. Purpose. He'd come to that park to end his life. A 6-year-old boy with a crumpled tissue had stopped him. Now the same people who'd destroyed everything he loved were threatening the only people who'd shown him kindness in years. Marcus picked up the letter. Read the first line. Then the second. Then he walked to the kitchen, held it over the sink, and set it on fire. He watched it burn until there was nothing left but ash. Tomorrow, he'd go back to the park, but not to die. The next morning, Marcus arrived at the park before the sun was fully up. He sat on the same bench, watching the empty playground, waiting for something he couldn't name. His motorcycle was parked nearby, visible from the road. He wanted Viper's people to see him. Wanted them to know he wasn't running. Around 9, he heard them before he saw them. Mommy, look. He came back. I told you he'd come back. Marcus turned to see Ethan racing across the park, legs pumping, face split with the biggest grin he'd ever seen. Rachel followed behind, walking at a more reasonable pace, but she was smiling too. Ethan skidded to a stop in front of the bench, breathless. You came. You said maybe, and you came. Mommy said maybe meant probably no, but I said maybe meant maybe. And I was right. Kid, take a breath. I'm not tired. Ethan climbed onto the bench, assuming his place next to Marcus, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Mommy brought sandwiches. She makes really good sandwiches. Do you like peanut butter? Lucas doesn't like peanut butter, but Lucas also eats his boogers, so his opinion doesn't count. Rachel arrived slightly out of breath. Ethan, please let the man breathe. He's breathing. Look, he's breathing right now. Marcus looked at Rachel. He always like this. This is him on a calm day. They sat together on the bench, an unlikely trio. Rachel unpacked sandwiches from a small cooler, while Ethan chattered about his dreams last night, his teacher, and a squirrel he'd named Gerald. Marcus ate in silence, but he was watching. Always watching. A black SUV drove past the park. Slow. Windows tinted. Marcus clocked it immediately. Viper's people. Something wrong. Rachel had noticed his shift in attention. No. The lie came easily. Just thought I saw something. Marcus. Rachel's voice was quiet. Serious. I'm a nurse. I've had patients lie to my face for 30 years. I can tell when someone's not being honest. Their eyes met. There are things about me you don't want to know, Marcus said. Probably. Rachel didn't look away. But here's the thing. Ethan doesn't see people the way the rest of us do. He sees something in you. And in 6 years of parenting that kid, he's never been wrong about someone. He's 6. He thinks booger eating is a valid character assessment. And yet, Rachel smiled slightly. Here we are. The black SUV drove past again. This time it slowed even more. Marcus made a decision. Tonight, he said quietly. After Ethan's in bed. Can you meet me somewhere? Rachel's expression shifted. Wary, but not afraid. Where? The diner on 5th. I'll explain everything. But you need to know what you're getting into by being seen with me. And if I decide it's not worth the risk, Marcus looked at Ethan, who was now trying to befriend a pigeon, then you take your son, and you never speak to me again. And I'll understand. Rachel studied him for a long moment. 9 o'clock, she finally said. My neighbor watches Ethan when I work nights. She can cover. 9 o'clock. Ethan ran back over pigeon forgotten. What are you guys talking about? Is it a secret I'm really good at secrets? I didn't tell anyone about the tooth fairy not being real. Well, except Lucas, but that's because he was being mean about my dinosaur shirt. Rachel pulled him into a hug. It's not a secret, sweetheart. Just grown-up stuff. Boring. Ethan looked at Marcus. Will you teach me to ride a motorcycle someday, Ethan? What I asked nicely. Marcus almost smiled. Maybe when you're older, kid. How much older? Ethan enough? But Rachel was smiling too. Marcus watched them, this mother and son who had no idea what they'd stepped into, who had no idea that simply being nice to a stranger had painted a target on their backs. He'd spent 40 years being the monster everyone feared. Maybe it was time to be something else. Maybe it was time to protect something instead of destroy it. The black SUV drove past one more time. This time Marcus memorized the plate. Tonight he'd tell Rachel the truth. Tomorrow he'd figure out how to keep them safe. And if Viper wanted a war, then Ghost would give him one. 9 o'clock came faster than Marcus expected. He sat in a corner booth at the diner, his back to the wall, watching the door. The waitress, a woman in her 60s who'd lived in Ridgewood her whole life, kept glancing at him nervously. He ordered black coffee and waited. Rachel walked in at exactly 9:03. She'd changed out of her scrubs into jeans and a sweater. Her hair was down. She looked younger somehow, less tired. She spotted him immediately and made her way to the booth. Thanks for coming, Marcus said, as she slid into the seat across from him. Thanks for trusting me enough to ask. Rachel ordered tea when the waitress came by. So, what's going on? Marcus took a breath. How much do you know about me, the real me, not the rumors? I know you were Hell's Angels. I know you left about 5 years ago. I know people in this town cross the street when they see you coming. That all, I know your daughter died, Emma. I remember reading about it in the paper. Rachel's voice softened. Overdose. She was 28. Marcus's jaw tightened. What else? Nothing. That's all I know. Then let me fill in the gaps. Marcus wrapped his hands around his coffee cup. I joined the Hells Angels when I was 19. My old man beat the hell out of me my whole childhood, and the club was the first place I felt like I belonged, like I mattered. Rachel listened without interrupting. I was good at violence. Too good. They called me Ghost because I could disappear people, make problems go away. I rose through the ranks faster than anyone in the chapter's history. What does disappear people mean? Marcus met her eyes. What do you think it means? Rachel's face didn't change. I work in an ICU. I've held hands with murderers and saints. Everyone has a story. My story has a body count. I assumed it might. Marcus studied her. You're not running. Not yet. Keep talking. I got married at 25. Met a woman named Lisa, who saw something in me that wasn't there. We had Emma a year later. Marcus's voice roughened. Lisa left when Emma was 5. Took her and went to California. Told me if I ever came near them again, she'd tell the cops everything she knew about me. What did you do? Nothing. I let them go. Told myself they were better off without me. He laughed bitterly. Turns out I was right, but not for the reasons I thought. What do you mean? Emma grew up hating me. I sent money presents, tried to call on birthdays. Lisa intercepted all of it. Emma thought I'd abandoned her completely. By the time she was a teenager, she wanted nothing to do with me. But you tried to reconnect later. When she was 24, I'd just gotten out of prison, 5-year stint for assault. I tracked her down, tried to make things right. Marcus's hands tightened on the cup. She told me I was too late. That I'd had my chance and I'd wasted it. She said I was never her father, just a ghost. Rachel reached across the table and touched his hand. I'm sorry. 4 years later, she was dead, overdose, alone in her apartment. The police found a note. Marcus's voice broke. You know what it said. Rachel shook her head. I waited my whole life for you to come. You never did. The words hung in the air between them. She wasn't angry, Marcus said. Not in the end. She was just waiting. And I didn't know. I didn't know she'd been waiting. You couldn't have known. I should have tried harder. Should have shown up at her door instead of calling. Should have fought Lisa in court. Should have done 1,000 things differently. Marcus wiped his face roughly. But I didn't. And now she's gone. And I've spent the last 5 years trying to figure out why I'm still breathing when she's not. Rachel's grip on his hand tightened. That's why you were crying in the park. Yesterday was the 5th anniversary of her death. I came to that park to... He stopped. To what? Marcus pulled the words from somewhere deep and dark. To say goodbye, permanently. Rachel's face went pale. Marcus, your son stopped me. Marcus met her eyes. That weird, fearless, impossibly kind kid of yours walked up to a man about to end his own life and offered him a tissue. And I couldn't do it. Not after that. Rachel's eyes glistened. Ethan doesn't know. No. And he never will. But you need to understand something. Marcus leaned forward. Yesterday that boy gave me a reason to wait one more day. And today someone I used to work with found out about you. Rachel stiffened. What do you mean? His name is Viper. He's the current president of the Hells Angels. He thinks I stole money from the club 15 years ago, $200,000. Did you? No. The money was seized in a police raid. But Viper doesn't believe me. Never has. Marcus's voice hardened. He called me last night. He knows where you live. He knows Ethan's name. He knows where he goes to school." Rachel's face drained of color. "Are you telling me my son is in danger?" "I'm telling you that being seen with me has consequences, and I'm giving you the chance to walk away before those consequences find you." The diner was silent, except for the clink of dishes in the back. Rachel stared at him for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was steady. "My husband David spent his life walking toward danger. He ran into burning buildings. He talked people off ledges. He once told me that the world is full of people who run away from trouble, and the only thing that stands between civilization and chaos is the small number of people willing to run toward it. I'm not finished." Rachel's eyes were fierce now. "Ethan asked me this morning if you were going to be his friend. I told him I didn't know. He looked at me with those big eyes of his and said, 'Mommy, he's sad, like I was sad when Daddy died. He needs us.'" Marcus couldn't speak. "My son has never been wrong about people," Rachel continued. "Not once. So if he says you need us, then you need us. And I'm not going to let some motorcycle gang change that." "You don't know what you're saying." "I know exactly what I'm saying." Rachel leaned back, crossing her arms. "Now, what's the plan?" Marcus stared at this woman, this widowed nurse with a 6-year-old son, who had every reason to run and every reason to be afraid, and who instead was asking him for a plan. "You're insane," he said. "Probably." Rachel smiled slightly. "But I'm also an ICU nurse who's watched too many people die with regrets. I'm not going to be one of them, so I'll ask again. What's the plan?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then, for the first time in 5 years, he felt something other than grief. He felt hope. "I've got evidence," he said slowly. "Documents, recordings, proof of crimes the club has committed over the past 2 decades. Why didn't you turn it in before? Because turning it in meant dying. The club doesn't forgive traitors." And now, Marcus thought about Ethan's face, about the crumpled tissue, about the boy who saw a crying stranger and walked toward the pain instead of away from it. "Now I've got something worth dying for." Rachel nodded slowly. "Then we need to be smart about this. What resources do you have?" "Just me." "That's not true anymore." Rachel reached across the table and took his hand again. "You've got me. And whether you like it or not, you've got a 6-year-old boy who thinks you're cool." Marcus almost laughed. Almost. "This isn't a joke, Rachel. These people will hurt you. They'll hurt Ethan." "Then we'd better make sure they don't get the chance." Rachel's jaw set. "I've got contacts at the hospital, security guys, police who come through after shootings, and there's a retired Marine named Tom Bradley who owes me his life, literally. I saved him during a heart attack last year. You really think a bunch of nurses and a retired Marine can take on the hellsangels? I think you'd be surprised what people can do when they're protecting their community." Rachel squeezed his hand. "Ridgewood looks small and quiet, but we take care of our own. And right now, whether you realize it or not, you're becoming one of our own." Marcus looked at her. This woman who had lost her husband, who was raising a son alone, who worked night shifts in an ICU and still had the strength to help a stranger. "Why?" he asked. "Why are you doing this?" Rachel was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was thick with emotion. "Because my husband spent his last 3 weeks alive making me promise something. He made me promise to never stop seeing the good in people, to never let fear make me cold, to never give up on someone just because they've given up on themselves." She met his eyes. "You came to that park to die, Marcus, and my son walked up to you and offered you a tissue. That wasn't an accident. That was David working through his son, reminding me of the promise I made." Marcus felt something crack open inside him, something he'd kept locked away for years. "I don't deserve this," he said. "Maybe not." Rachel smiled softly. "But Ethan thinks you do, and I trust his judgment more than anyone else's in this world." They sat in silence for a moment. The waitress refilled Marcus's coffee, still eyeing him nervously. Finally, Rachel spoke. "So, tomorrow, we start planning. I'll make some calls. You figure out how to access that evidence you mentioned, and maybe—" She smiled. "You can come to dinner. Ethan's been begging me to invite you." "Dinner? Don't sound so terrified. It's just spaghetti." Marcus shook his head slowly. 24 hours ago, I was ready to die. Now I'm making dinner plans. Life's funny that way." Rachel stood, leaving money on the table. "My husband used to say the universe has a sense of humor. Sometimes the darkest moments are just setups for the brightest ones." She started toward the door, then stopped and turned back. "Marcus, thank you for telling me the truth. I know that wasn't easy." "You're not running?" "No." Rachel smiled. "I'm walking. Toward the trouble. Just like David taught me." She left. Marcus sat alone in the booth, his cold coffee forgotten. Outside, he could see Rachel walking to her car. She moved with purpose, with confidence, like a woman who had faced grief and come out the other side stronger. He thought about Ethan, about the way the boy had looked at him without fear, about the crumpled tissue and the simple words that had stopped a man from ending his life. He thought about Emma, about the note she'd left, about all the years he'd wasted. And he made a decision. He was done running, done hiding, done letting the past define his future. If Viper wanted a war, he'd get one. But this time, Marcus wouldn't be fighting alone. The next evening, Marcus sat at Rachel's kitchen table, a plate of spaghetti in front of him that he hadn't touched. Ethan was talking. The kid hadn't stopped talking since Marcus walked through the door. "And then Lucas said his dad could beat up anyone, and I said my dad was in heaven so he could beat up everyone because angels are super strong, and then Lucas got quiet because he didn't think of that." Rachel set a glass of water in front of Marcus. Ethan Honey let Marcus eat. He's not eating. He's just looking at it. Ethan pointed at Marcus's plate with his fork. "Don't you like spaghetti? Mommy makes really good spaghetti. Even Grandma says so, and Grandma doesn't like anything Mommy cooks." "Ethan." "What? It's true." Marcus picked up his fork. The simple act felt foreign. When was the last time he'd sat at a dinner table with a family 20 years 30? "It's good," he said after taking a bite, and he meant it. Ethan beamed. "Told you, Mommy's the best cook. Well, except for pancakes. Her pancakes are kind of weird." "They're not weird, they're creative. They're burned." Rachel threw her napkin at her son, who giggled and ducked. Marcus watched the exchange, something tightening in his chest. This was what he'd missed. This easy warmth. This simple joy. This was what Emma should have had. "Marcus," Rachel's voice cut through his thoughts. "You okay?" "Fine." He cleared his throat. "Just thinking." "About what?" Ethan asked. "Ethan, that's not about my daughter." Marcus surprised himself by answering. "She would have liked you, kid. You two would have gotten along." Ethan's expression shifted to something older. "Because she's in heaven." "Yeah." "What was she like?" Marcus set down his fork. "She was smart. Smarter than me. She liked to read books, big books, with complicated words. And she had this laugh." He stopped, throat closing. "A good laugh. The best laugh. The kind that made everyone else laugh too." Ethan nodded seriously. My daddy had a good laugh too. Mommy says I have his laugh. She cries sometimes when I laugh really hard. Ethan, Rachel's voice was thick. It's okay, Mommy. Happy tears, remember. You said they were happy tears. Rachel wiped her eyes quickly. That's right, sweetheart. Happy tears. Marcus looked at this small family held together by love and loss and the stubborn refusal to stop living. He felt like an intruder, like a disease that would infect their warmth and destroy it. I should go, he said, pushing back from the table. You haven't finished, Ethan protested. I'm not that hungry. You're lying. Ethan crossed his arms. My teacher says when people look away when they talk, they're lying. You looked away. Your teacher talks too much. That's what Mommy says too. Rachel stood. Marcus, wait. Don't leave because of... Her phone rang. She glanced at the screen and frowned. I have to take this. It's the hospital. She stepped into the hallway. Hello? Marcus and Ethan sat in awkward silence. Well, awkward for Marcus. Ethan seemed perfectly comfortable. Do you have any friends? Ethan asked suddenly. What? Friends, people you hang out with, people you talk to. Marcus thought about it. Not really. That's sad. Ethan tilted his head. Everyone needs friends, even grumpy people. Who says I'm grumpy? Your face says you're grumpy. Despite himself, Marcus felt the corner of his mouth twitch. You always this honest. Mommy says honesty is the most important thing, even when it hurts people's feelings. Ethan paused. But she also says I should be nice. I'm still figuring out how to do both at the same time. Let me know when you work it out. Rachel came back into the kitchen. Her face had changed. Something was wrong. Marcus? Her voice was tight. Someone called the hospital looking for me. Said they were from my insurance company asking about my work schedule, my address, what school Ethan goes to. Marcus's blood went cold. This afternoon, one of the receptionists thought it was weird, so she didn't tell them anything. But they're checking your pattern, learning your routine. Marcus was already on his feet. Where's your neighbor, the one who watches Ethan? Mrs. Patterson? She's next door. Can she take him tonight? Keep him inside. Marcus, what's... Rachel. He gripped her shoulders, forcing her to meet his eyes. They're not going to wait a week. They're already gathering information. You need to be somewhere else tonight. Both of you. Ethan had gone quiet. His big eyes moved between Marcus and his mother. I don't understand, Rachel said. Why would they? Because they know I care about you. The words came out before Marcus could stop them. They saw us at the park. They saw me looking at your son like he mattered. That's all they need. Rachel's face paled. What do we do? Marcus pulled out his phone. He had one number saved from his old life. One person who might still answer. I'm going to make a call. Pack a bag for you and Ethan. Just for tonight. We'll figure out the rest tomorrow. Where are we going? Somewhere they can't find you. Marcus walked into the living room and dialed. The phone rang 4 times before a gruff voice answered. Whoever this is, you've got the wrong number. Tommy, it's Ghost. Silence. Ghost. The voice was cautious now. Heard you were dead. Not yet. I need a favor. A favor. You drop off the map for 5 years and now you need a favor. I wouldn't call if it wasn't life or death. More silence. Then, what kind of favor? I need a safe place for a woman and her kid. 1 night, maybe 2. Somewhere Viper's people won't look. Viper's after you. He thinks I took his money. Same old story. Did you... You know I didn't. Tommy sighed heavily. There's a cabin. My brother's place up near Johnson Creek. He's in Florida for the winter. I can give you the key. I need it tonight. You're really in deep, huh? Deep as it gets. All right, meet me at the old gas station on Route 7, 1 hour. Tommy, thank you. Don't thank me yet. If Viper finds out I helped you, we're both dead. The line went dead. Marcus turned to find Ethan standing in the doorway, his small face serious. Are we in danger? The boy asked. Marcus knelt down to his level. There are some bad people who are angry at me, and because I've been spending time with you and your mom, they might try to scare you to get to me. Like bullies. Worse than bullies. Ethan's jaw set in a way that reminded Marcus painfully of Emma. My daddy always said to stand up to bullies. Your daddy was right. But sometimes standing up means being smart. Tonight, that means going somewhere safe, while I figure out how to stop these bullies for good. Are you going to hurt them? The question hit Marcus like a punch. I'm going to make sure they can't hurt you, he said carefully. That's what matters. Ethan was quiet for a moment. Then he reached out and touched Marcus's scarred knuckles. I'm not scared of you, he said. I know you look scary, but you're not. You're just sad and tired. Marcus couldn't speak. It's okay. Ethan patted his hand like Marcus was a frightened animal. We'll help you feel better. That's what friends are for. Rachel appeared behind her son, a small bag over her shoulder. Her eyes were red, but her voice was steady. We're ready. Marcus stood. Let's go. They drove in Marcus's truck, less conspicuous than his motorcycle. Ethan sat between them, quiet for once, sensing the gravity of the situation. Halfway to the gas station, Rachel spoke. You have a plan, don't you? Beyond hiding us in a cabin? Working on one. That's not reassuring. I have evidence. Documents, recordings. Enough to put Viper and half his crew away for decades. I've been sitting on it for 5 years thinking I'd never use it. Why not? Because using it meant dying. The club doesn't forgive snitches. Marcus gripped the steering wheel tighter. But now what? Marcus glanced at Ethan, who was fighting to keep his eyes open. Now I've got something worth the risk. Rachel was quiet for a long moment. Then, my husband said something like that once, before a bad fire. He told me some things are worth dying for. Did he mean you, me, and Ethan? He said if it ever came down to his life or ours, there was no choice. He'd give everything for us. Smart man. The best. Rachel's voice caught. He would have liked you, Marcus. I know that sounds crazy, but he would have. Why? Because you're the kind of person he dedicated his life to helping. People who are broken but not beyond repair. People who just need someone to believe in them. Marcus didn't know what to say to that, so he said nothing. Tommy was waiting at the gas station just like he'd promised. He was older now, grayer, but still built like a bear. He handed Marcus a key without ceremony. Cabin stocked with food. Generator works. Cell service is garbage, but there's a landline. Tommy's eyes moved to Rachel and Ethan, and something softened in his hard face. This who you're protecting? Yeah. Tommy nodded slowly. Then I understand. Understand what? Why you're willing to go to war? Tommy clapped Marcus on the shoulder. Ghost, listen to me. Viper's not going to stop. You know that. Whatever you're planning, you better do it fast. I know. And Marcus... Tommy lowered his voice. The old crew. Some of them still respect you. Not all of them are loyal to Viper. Might be worth reaching out. Marcus filed that away. I'll keep it in mind. He loaded Rachel and Ethan back into the truck and drove for another hour deep into the woods until they reached a small cabin surrounded by nothing but trees and silence. Ethan had fallen asleep against his mother's shoulder. Marcus carried him inside and laid him gently on the couch, covering him with a blanket he found in a closet. When he turned around, Rachel was watching him. "You're good with him," she said quietly. "I don't know about that." "I do." She stepped closer. "The way you look at him, the way you listen when he talks. You would have been a good father, Marcus, if circumstances had been different." Circumstances weren't different, but they could be, going forward. Rachel took his hand. "Whatever happens next, I want you to know Ethan adores you. And She stopped. "You what?" Rachel looked up at him, her eyes shining in the dim light. "I haven't let anyone get close since David died. I told myself I was protecting Ethan, but really I was protecting myself. It was easier to be alone than to risk losing someone again." "Rachel, let me finish." She squeezed his hand. "When I saw you crying in that park, something in me recognized something in you. The grief, the guilt, the feeling that you're just going through the motions, waiting for it to be over." Marcus couldn't breathe. "But then Ethan walked up to you with that tissue, and you didn't push him away. You listened to him. You came back the next day. And I thought," Rachel's voice broke, "I thought maybe there was hope, for both of us." Marcus stood frozen, her hand in his, her words echoing in his head. "I'm not a good man," he finally said. "I've done things you can't imagine, things that keep me up at night." "I know. And you still, yes." Rachel's voice was firm. "Because who you were isn't who you have to be." That's what David believed. That's what I believe. And that's what Ethan sees in you, not your past, but your potential. Marcus closed his eyes. He felt something breaking inside him, something he'd kept locked away for decades. "I don't know how to be what you need me to be." "Then we'll figure it out together." Rachel stepped even closer, resting her head against his chest. "One day at a time." Marcus stood there holding this woman he barely knew, feeling emotions he thought he'd buried forever. For the first time in 5 years, he let himself hope. Then his phone buzzed. He pulled it out. Unknown number. Video message. His blood turned to ice as he watched. The video showed the outside of Rachel's house, her car in the driveway, the lights in the windows, then a voice off camera. "Cute place. Be a shame if something happened to it." The video ended. Rachel had seen his face change. "What is it?" Marcus turned the phone around. Rachel watched the video. Her hand flew to her mouth. "They were at my house," she whispered. "They were right there. Tonight, while we were at dinner. Oh my God! If we hadn't left... But we did." Marcus gripped her shoulders. "They're trying to scare us. It's a tactic. They want me panicked and stupid." "Is it working?" Marcus thought about the rage building in his chest, the old familiar darkness that had served him so well for so many years. "Yes," he admitted, "but not the way they want." "What do you mean? They think this will make me run, or make me surrender?" Marcus's voice went cold. "They're wrong. This makes me want to burn them to the ground." Rachel stared at him. "Marcus, I'm done running, Rachel. I've been running for 5 years. From my past, from my guilt, from everything I used to be." He cupped her face in his hands. "Your son walked up to a monster crying in a park and offered him a tissue. He deserved better than a monster. You both do. You're not... I was. But I don't have to keep being one." Marcus kissed her forehead, a gesture so tender it surprised both of them. "Stay here with Ethan. Don't leave for any reason. I'll be back by morning." "Where are you going?" "To make some calls. To call in some debts." Marcus headed for the door. "And to remind Viper why they used to call me Ghost." He was halfway to his truck when he heard the screen door bang open behind him. "Marcus, wait!" He turned. Rachel stood on the porch, hugging herself against the cold. "Don't do anything stupid," she called. "Please, Ethan needs you to come back." Marcus looked at her, this woman who had taken a chance on a broken man who had trusted her child's instincts over her own fear. "I'll come back," he promised. "I've got something to live for now." He climbed into the truck and drove away, watching the cabin shrink in his rearview mirror until the trees swallowed it completely. His phone was already in his hand. Tommy had said some of the old crew might still be loyal. Time to find out which ones. He dialed the first number. "Yeah." A familiar voice. Sal. They'd ridden together for 15 years. "It's Ghost." A long pause. "Ghost? Holy hell! I need to know where you stand, Sal. With Viper or against him?" "That's a dangerous question. I'm not in the mood for safe questions. He's threatening a woman and a kid because of me, a 6-year-old boy who's never hurt anyone in his life." Another pause. "A kid. His name is Ethan. He offered me a tissue when I was crying in a park. That's his crime. Being kind to me." Sal exhaled heavily. "Viper's gone too far lately. A lot of us think so. But thinking and acting are different things. What if I could guarantee Viper goes down evidence, the kind that puts him away for life? You'd be a dead man walking." "I'm already dead, Sal. I've been dead for 5 years, but I met someone who made me want to live, and I'm not going to let Viper take that away." Silence. "There's a meet tomorrow night," Sal finally said. "Warehouse on Industrial. Viper's gathering the lieutenants, talking about handling you. What time? Midnight. Will you be there? I have to be. But Marcus..." Sal's voice dropped. "You show up there, it's a death sentence." "Maybe. Or maybe it's time Ghost reminded everyone what he's capable of." He hung up and dialed the next number. Then the next. By the time he pulled into Ridgewood's town limits, he'd talked to 6 former brothers. 4 were sympathetic. 2 hung up on him. 4 might be enough. He didn't go home. They'd be watching his apartment. Instead, he drove to a storage unit on the edge of town, one he'd rented under a fake name years ago. Inside was a lockbox. Inside the lockbox was everything he needed to destroy Viper. Flash drives, audio recordings, photographs, financial records showing money laundering, drug trafficking, even 2 unsolved murders with physical evidence. Marcus had collected it all over his last 5 years in the club. Insurance, he'd called it, in case things went bad. Things had gone bad, all right, just not the way he'd expected. He loaded everything into a duffel bag and drove to the one place he knew would be safe this time of night. The Ridgewood police station. The officer at the desk looked up when Marcus walked in. His hand immediately moved toward his sidearm. "Easy." Marcus set the duffel bag on the counter. "I'm not here to start trouble. I'm here to end it." "You're Marcus Thompson." "Yeah, and this bag contains enough evidence to put Victor Reyes and half the Hells Angels chapter in prison for the rest of their lives." The officer stared at him. "Why? Because they're threatening people I care about, and I'm done being the monster everyone thinks I am." The officer didn't move. "You realize if I take this, you're going to need protection. They'll kill you." "I know. And you're doing it anyway." Marcus thought about Ethan, about the crumpled tissue, about Rachel's hand in his. "Yeah," he said. "I'm doing it anyway." The officer reached for his radio. "Chief, you're going to want to come down here. Ghost just walked in, and you're not going to believe what he brought with him." Marcus sat down in a plastic chair and waited. For the first time in 40 years, he was on the right side of a police station. It felt strange. It felt right. 3 hours later, Marcus walked out of the police station. The sun was just starting to rise, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. He'd told them everything. Every crime. Every cover-up. Every body buried in places no one would ever find. He'd signed statements, given depositions, named names. There was no going back now. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "We know what you did. The nurse and the boy are dead." Marcus's heart stopped. He was in his truck and driving before the phone hit the passenger seat. The road to the cabin had never felt longer. Every mile stretched into eternity. His hands shook on the wheel. His mind raced with images he couldn't bear to see. Please, please let them be okay. Please. He tore down the dirt road branches, scraping the sides of his truck until the cabin came into view. Rachel stood on the porch. Ethan was beside her, waving. They were alive. Marcus slammed the truck into park and was out before it fully stopped. He crossed the distance in seconds, pulling them both into his arms so hard Ethan squeaked. "You're okay," he breathed. "You're okay." "Marcus, what happened?" Rachel's voice was muffled against his shoulder. "You're shaking." "I got a message. Said you were—" He couldn't finish. "We're fine. We're right here." Marcus held them tighter, feeling Ethan's small arms wrap around his waist, feeling Rachel's hand press against his back. "I did it," he said. "I turned over everything. Viper's going down." Rachel pulled back to look at his face. "You went to the police?" "I gave them enough to bury him. They're getting warrants as we speak." "Marcus." Rachel's eyes filled with tears. "You know what that means. You can never—" "I know." He cupped her face in his hands. "But I'd rather die protecting something good than live protecting something rotten." Ethan tugged on his jacket. "Are the bad men going to go away now?" Marcus looked down at this boy, this impossibly brave, impossibly kind boy who had changed everything. "Yeah, buddy. The bad men are going to go away." "Good," Ethan nodded firmly. "Because I want you to come to my birthday party. It's in 3 weeks. Mommy's making cake. Probably burned cake, but still." "Ethan." Rachel laughed through her tears. Marcus felt something crack open in his chest, something that had been frozen for years. He laughed. It was rusty, unpracticed, but it was real. "I'll be there, kid," he promised. "I wouldn't miss it." Ethan grinned, showing his missing tooth. "Good, because you're my best friend now. Besides Lucas, but Lucas is kind of annoying sometimes." Rachel caught Marcus's eye over Ethan's head. She was smiling through her tears. "Thank you," she mouthed. Marcus pulled them both close again. The sun rose higher, flooding the clearing with golden light. Somewhere in the distance, birds were singing. For the first time in 5 years, Marcus felt peace. But he knew it wouldn't last. The police might have the evidence, but Viper still had loyal soldiers. The raid would take time. The arrests would take longer. And until then, they were all still in danger. His phone rang. The police chief's number. "Thompson, we've got a problem." Marcus's stomach dropped. "What kind of problem?" "Viper. He's gone. Someone tipped him off. He cleared out before we could get there." Marcus closed his eyes. Of course. Nothing was ever that easy. "Any idea where he went?" "Not yet, but Thompson, he left a message, written on the wall of his office." "What did it say?" The chief's voice was grim. It said, "Ghost should have stayed dead." Marcus looked at Rachel and Ethan, still wrapped in his arms, still trusting him to keep them safe. He'd started this war. Now he had to finish it. Marcus didn't sleep that night. He sat in a chair by the cabin door watching the darkness outside, listening for any sound that didn't belong. Rachel had tried to convince him to rest, but he'd refused. Every creak of the cabin, every rustle in the trees sent his hand to the gun tucked in his waistband. Viper was out there somewhere, hunting. And Marcus had painted a target on the only people who'd shown him kindness in years. Around 3 in the morning, Rachel appeared beside him with a cup of coffee. "You need to sleep," she said quietly. "I need to keep you alive." "You can't do that if you're exhausted." Marcus took the coffee but didn't drink it. "I've gone longer without sleep. Trust me." Rachel sat down on the floor beside his chair, leaning her head against his knee. The gesture was so intimate, so trusting, that Marcus felt his throat tighten. "Tell me about Emma," she said. "What? Your daughter? Tell me something about her. Something good." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then, "She used to make up songs. When she was little, before Lisa took her. She'd just walk around the house singing about whatever she saw. Songs about the toaster. Songs about her shoes. Songs about why the cat wouldn't play with her." Rachel smiled in the darkness. "That's beautiful." "I recorded one once, on an old cassette tape. She was singing about a butterfly that wouldn't sit still." Marcus's voice cracked. "I still have that tape. Haven't been able to listen to it since she died. Maybe someday you will. Maybe." They sat in silence for a while. Then Rachel spoke again. "David used to sing to Ethan. Every night before bed. He had this terrible voice, couldn't carry a tune to save his life, but Ethan loved it." She laughed softly. "After David died, Ethan asked me to sing instead. I tried, but it wasn't the same. He cried himself to sleep for 3 months. Kids are resilient." "They are, but they remember everything." Rachel looked up at him. "Ethan still talks to his dad. Every night. Tells him about his day, asks him questions. I used to think it was sad, but now I think it's beautiful. He's keeping David alive the only way he knows how." Marcus thought about Emma's grave, about all the times he'd stood there in silence, unable to find words. "I never talked to her," he admitted. "To Emma. I go to her grave, but I just stand there like an idiot. Can't figure out what to say. Maybe you're not ready yet. Maybe I'm a coward." Rachel reached up and took his hand. "You turned yourself into the police to protect a woman you barely know and a child you just met. That's not cowardice, Marcus. That's the opposite." Before Marcus could respond, his phone buzzed. A text from Sal. "Viper's making a move. Coming your way. Maybe 20 men. Get out now." Marcus was on his feet in an instant. "Rachel, wake Ethan. We need to go." "What's happening?" "They found us." Rachel didn't ask questions. She ran to the couch where Ethan was sleeping and scooped him up in her arms. The boy stirred, but didn't wake. Marcus grabbed the duffel bag he'd packed with supplies and headed for the back door. The front was too exposed. If Viper's men were coming up the main road, they'd have to go through the woods. "Stay close to me," he whispered. "Don't make a sound." They slipped out into the darkness. The night air was cold, biting through their clothes. Marcus moved quickly but carefully, years of instinct guiding his steps. Behind them, headlights appeared on the dirt road, multiple vehicles, moving fast. "Go!" Marcus hissed. "Straight ahead. There's a creek about half a mile out. Cross it and keep going." "What about you?" "I'm going to slow them down." "Marcus, no. Rachel." He gripped her shoulders. "You and Ethan are the only things that matter. Get him to safety. I'll find you." "Promise me." Marcus looked at this woman who had become his whole world in just a few days. "I promise." He kissed her forehead, then pushed her toward the trees. "Go, now." Rachel ran. Ethan bounced in her arms, still half asleep, confused, but trusting his mother. Marcus turned back toward the cabin. 20 men, maybe more. Against one. He'd faced worse odds. The first motorcycle roared up the dirt road, then another, then 3 black SUVs. They stopped in front of the cabin engines, idling headlights, cutting through the darkness. Marcus stepped out from behind a tree. Visible. Deliberate. Looking for me. Viper was the first to dismount. Even in the dim light, Marcus could see the fury on his face. Ghost. Viper's voice dripped with venom. You've made a lot of mistakes lately, but this going to the cops, that's the last mistake you'll ever make. Probably. Marcus stood his ground. But I'll tell you what I told them. I never took your money. The raid seized it. I've been telling you the truth for 15 years. And I've been calling you a liar for 15 years. Viper stepped closer. Where's the woman, the kid? Gone. We'll find them. No, you won't. Marcus's voice went cold. Because I'm going to give you something better. Me. Viper laughed. You think I want you? You're nothing, Ghost. A washed-up has-been who couldn't even kill himself properly. Maybe. But I'm the washed-up has-been who just destroyed your organization. Every crime, every body, every dollar you've ever laundered, it's all in federal hands now. Marcus smiled grimly. By this time tomorrow, half your crew will be in handcuffs. The other half will be running for the border. Viper's expression shifted. The confidence flickered. You're bluffing. Check your phone. I'm sure the texts are already coming in. As if on cue, several of Viper's men pulled out their phones. Marcus watched their faces change as they read whatever messages were arriving. Boss? One of them looked up pale. Feds hit the warehouse, they got everything. Another, my contact at the station says there's warrants out, for all of us. A third, we need to go, now. Viper's face contorted with rage. Nobody moves. He pulled a gun from his waistband and aimed it at Marcus's chest. This is your fault, all of it. Yeah. Marcus didn't flinch. It is. And I'd do it again. Because for the first time in 40 years, I'm on the right side. The right side? Viper laughed bitterly. You think those cops are going to protect you? You think that woman and her kid are going to make you whole? You're a killer ghost. That's all you've ever been. That's all you'll ever be. Maybe. Marcus took a step forward directly into the gun's line of fire. But at least I'm trying to be something else. What's your excuse? Viper's finger tightened on the trigger. And then, headlights, coming from the opposite direction. Not motorcycles. Trucks. Lots of them. Marcus turned to see a convoy approaching. Pickups, SUVs, even an old Jeep. They pulled to a stop behind him, forming a barrier between him and Viper's crew. Doors opened. People stepped out. Marcus recognized some of them. Tom Bradley, the retired Marine, Rachel had mentioned. Sal, his old riding partner, had switched sides. Half a dozen men from the VFW hall. Nurses from Rachel's hospital. Parents from Ethan's school. Even the elderly woman from the coffee shop. 40 people. Maybe more. All standing behind a broken biker they barely knew. Tom Bradley stepped forward, a shotgun resting casually on his shoulder. Evening, gentlemen. His voice carried across the clearing. Seems like you boys are a long way from home. Viper stared at the crowd. Who the hell are you? We're Ridgewood. Tom's voice was steel. And you're not welcome here. This isn't your fight, old man. The hell it isn't. That woman you're threatening, she saved my life last year. That little boy. He said hello to me every morning when I walked past his school. And this man, Tom gestured at Marcus. He came to our town broken and hurting, and instead of turning away, we chose to help. That makes him one of ours. Marcus felt something break open in his chest. something he'd kept locked away his entire life. He wasn't alone. For the first time ever, he wasn't alone. Viper looked at his men. Some of them were backing toward their bikes, phones still in hand, calculating their chances. The math wasn't good. 20 bikers against 40 armed townspeople with federal warrants hanging over their heads. "This isn't over," Viper snarled. "Yeah, it is." Marcus stepped forward. "Walk away, Viper, while you still can." "You think I'm afraid of a bunch of farmers with hunting rifles? I think you're smart enough to know when you're beat." Marcus's voice dropped. "The feds have everything. Your money, your records, your names. Every minute you stay here is another minute closer to prison. Or worse." One of Viper's lieutenants grabbed his arm. "Boss, we need to go." Viper shook him off his eyes, never leaving Marcus. "This isn't finished, Ghost. I'll find you. I'll find them. And when I do, no." A small voice cut through the tension. "You won't." Everyone turned. Rachel stood at the edge of the clearing, Ethan in her arms. The boy was awake now, his big eyes taking in the scene. Marcus's heart stopped. "Rachel, what are you—" "I came back." Her voice was steady. "Because running isn't the answer. It never is." She walked forward, past the line of townspeople, past Marcus, until she stood directly in front of Viper. "I'm the woman you threatened," she said calmly. "This is my son, the 6-year-old you were willing to hurt to get to a man who never wronged you." Viper's gun hand twitched. "Lady, you need to step back." "No." Rachel's voice didn't waver. "I spent 2 years watching my husband die, slowly, painfully. I held his hand while he took his last breath. I buried him and raised our son alone and worked night shifts until I forgot what sunlight looked like. After all that, you think you scare me." Ethan squirmed in her arms. "Mommy, it's okay, sweetheart." Rachel kept her eyes on Viper. "I want you to look at this man. Really look at him." Viper shifted uncomfortably under her gaze. "My son sees something in Marcus that you can't see. Something good. Something worth saving." Rachel's voice cracked, but held. "And he sees something in you too. Do you know what it is?" Viper said nothing. "He sees someone who's scared." Rachel took another step closer. "Someone who's been angry so long he forgot why. Someone who hurts people because it's easier than dealing with his own pain. Lady, you don't know anything about me. I know you're human." Rachel's voice softened. "I know that under all that leather and those tattoos, there's someone who used to be a child. Someone who used to have dreams. Someone who maybe a long time ago was kind." Viper's gun lowered slightly, almost imperceptibly. Ethan spoke up. "Mr. Everyone froze. "Ethan, don't—" Rachel started. But the boy had already wriggled out of her arms and was walking toward Viper. 6 years old, barefoot in pajamas, approaching a man with a gun like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Ethan," Marcus lunged forward, but Tom Bradley caught his arm. "Wait," Tom whispered. "Just wait." Ethan stopped in front of Viper and looked up at him with those big brown eyes. "You look really angry," Ethan said. "Are you sad?" "My mommy says sometimes people act angry when they're really sad." Viper stared at this child, this impossible child who saw through everything. "Kid, you need to go back to your mom." "I will, but I wanted to ask you something first." "What?" Ethan reached into his pajama pocket and pulled out a crumpled tissue, the same tissue he'd offered Marcus in the park, the one he'd been carrying ever since. He held it up to Viper. "You don't have to be mean anymore," Ethan said simply. "You can just be sad instead. That's okay. Being sad is okay. But being mean hurts people. And hurting people makes you more sad, It's like a circle. My teacher taught us about circles. Viper looked at the tissue. His gun hand dropped to his side. What is wrong with this kid? He muttered, but there was no venom in his voice. Nothing's wrong with him, Rachel said, stepping forward to pull Ethan back. He just sees people differently than the rest of us. Viper was quiet for a long moment. Behind him, his men were getting restless. Several had already started their bikes, ready to flee. Finally, Viper holstered his gun. You got lucky, Ghost. His voice was tired now. The feds, this town, this crazy kid. You got lucky. Maybe. Marcus stepped forward. Or maybe I finally got something I never had before. What's that? People willing to fight for me. Marcus extended his hand. Walk away, Viper. Start over somewhere else. It's not too late. Viper looked at the hand, looked at Marcus, looked at the crowd of townspeople standing ready to defend a stranger. You really think people can change? I know they can. Marcus gestured at Ethan. That kid there, he taught me more in one day than I learned in 40 years. And the first lesson was this: it's never too late to be kind. Viper laughed bitterly. Kind? That's rich coming from you. I know, but I'm trying. Marcus kept his hand extended. That's all any of us can do. For a moment, everything hung in balance. Then Viper turned away. Let's go, he called to his men. We're done here. Boss, what about... I said we're done. Viper climbed onto his motorcycle. The feds want us, they can chase us. But this small-town crusade... He looked back at Marcus one last time. This isn't worth dying for. He kicked the bike to life and roared off into the darkness. One by one, his men followed. Within minutes, the clearing was empty, except for the townspeople. Tom Bradley was the first to break the silence. Well, that was something. Marcus stood frozen, watching the last taillights disappear. His legs suddenly felt weak. The adrenaline was crashing. Then Ethan ran over and threw his arms around Marcus's waist. You did it, the boy shouted. You made the bad men go away. Marcus looked down at this child. This fearless, impossible, wonderful child. No, buddy. His voice was thick. You did. Rachel joined them, wrapping her arms around both of them. Marcus felt her tears against his shoulder. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for coming back. I promised I would. The townspeople gathered around them. Tom Bradley clapped Marcus on the shoulder. Sal hung back, uncertain, until Marcus caught his eye and nodded. The nurses from Rachel's hospital hugged her. Parents from the school fussed over Ethan. And Marcus stood in the middle of it all, surrounded by people who had chosen to stand with him. Not because of who he'd been, but because of who he was trying to become. Marcus. Ethan tugged on his jacket. Yeah, buddy. Can we go home now? I'm really tired and hungry. Do you think Mommy will make breakfast? Probably burned breakfast, but still. Rachel laughed through her tears. Yes, sweetheart. We can go home. And Tom Bradley stepped forward. My truck's just over there. Let me give you folks a ride back to town. I think you've had enough excitement for one night. As they walked toward Tom's truck, Marcus felt something he hadn't felt in 5 years. Hope. Real hope. Not the desperate kind that fades with morning, the kind that settles into your bones and stays. He'd spent 40 years building walls. A 6-year-old boy with a crumpled tissue had knocked them all down. And now, standing in the aftermath of a battle won without bloodshed, surrounded by people who had chosen him, Marcus finally understood what his daughter had been trying to tell him all along. It's never too late to be loved. It's never too late to belong. His phone buzzed, a text from the police chief. We got 6 of them. Viper escaped, but we're tracking him. He won't get far. You did good, Thompson. Real good. Marcus read the message 3 times. You did good. When was the last time anyone had said that to him? He looked at Rachel, who was buckling Ethan into Tom's back seat. The boy was already half asleep, exhausted from the night's drama. She caught his eye and smiled. That tired, beautiful smile that made his chest ache. Coming? She asked. Marcus nodded and climbed into the truck beside them. Ethan reached out in his sleep and grabbed Marcus's hand. Don't go, the boy mumbled. Stay. Marcus felt his eyes sting. I'm not going anywhere, buddy. He squeezed the small hand. I promise. Tom started the truck and pulled onto the road. Behind them, the other townspeople followed in their vehicles, a convoy of ordinary people who had done an extraordinary thing. Ridgewood was waking up. The first light of dawn painted the sky pink and gold. It was a new day, and for Marcus Ghost Thompson, it was the first day of a new life. 3 weeks passed. The police caught Viper at the Mexican border. The news showed him in handcuffs, his face twisted with rage as officers shoved him into the back of a cruiser. Marcus watched the footage on Rachel's small kitchen television, feeling nothing. No satisfaction. No relief. Just emptiness. You okay? Rachel asked, setting a cup of coffee in front of him. I thought I'd feel something. Marcus turned away from the screen. Glad maybe, or relieved, but there's just nothing. That's normal? Closure doesn't always feel the way we expect it to. Is this closure? Rachel sat down across from him. I don't know. Is it? Before Marcus could answer, Ethan burst through the kitchen door, still in his pajamas, hair wild from sleep. Marcus, you're here. The boy launched himself into Marcus's lap. Mommy said you might come for breakfast, but I didn't believe her because she always says things to make me eat faster. I'm here, buddy. Good, because I have something to show you. It's really important. More important than breakfast. Ethan considered this. Maybe the same important. Can we do both at the same time? Rachel laughed. How about you go get dressed first, then show Marcus your important thing? Ethan groaned dramatically, but complied, thundering up the stairs with the boundless energy that only 6-year-olds possess. In the silence that followed, Rachel reached across the table and took Marcus's hand. You've been distant lately, she said gently. Ever since that night. I thought once Viper was caught, things would get easier. They should be. But they're not. Marcus pulled his hand away and walked to the window. Outside, normal life continued. Cars passing, neighbors waving. A world that had no idea what had happened in these past few weeks. I keep thinking about Emma, he admitted. About all the time I wasted. About all the chances I had to be different. You can't change the past, Marcus. I know, but I can't stop thinking about it either. He turned to face her. She died thinking I didn't care, thinking I'd abandoned her. And the worst part, she wasn't wrong. I did abandon her, over and over. Every time I chose the club over her, every time I sent money instead of showing up. Rachel stood and walked to him. You're not that person anymore. Aren't I? Marcus's voice cracked. What if this is all just temporary? What if I wake up one day and realize I'm still the same monster I've always been? You want to know what I think? What? Rachel cupped his face in her hands, forcing him to meet her eyes. I think you're scared. I think you've spent so long hating yourself that you don't know how to stop. And I think you're looking for reasons to push us away because it's easier than believing you deserve this. Marcus closed his eyes. Rachel, I'm not done. Her voice was firm, but kind. My husband spent his whole life believing in people. He talked strangers off ledges. He ran into fires. He never gave up on anyone, no matter how broken they seemed. Your husband sounds like a saint. He wasn't. He was just a man who believed that everyone deserves a chance to be better. Rachel's voice softened. And I think if he were here right now, he'd tell you to stop running from your second chance and start living it. The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. He felt something crack inside him. Something that had been frozen for years. I don't know how, he whispered. Then let us show you. Ethan's footsteps thundered down the stairs. He appeared in the doorway, dressed in jeans and a t-shirt that was on backwards. I'm ready. Can I show Marcus now? Please, please, please. Rachel smiled, wiping her eyes quickly. Go ahead, sweetheart. Ethan grabbed Marcus's hand and dragged him into the living room. On the coffee table was a piece of construction paper covered in crayon drawings. I made this for you, Ethan said proudly. See, that's you. He pointed to a tall figure with a lot of brown scribbles around its head. I drew your beard, and that's Mommy. A smaller figure with long hair. And that's me. The smallest figure holding hands with the other two. And look. He pointed to the top corner where two stick figures floated among crayon clouds. That's my daddy, Ethan explained. And that's Emma. I figured they're probably friends in heaven, so I drew them watching us. Marcus couldn't breathe. See, Daddy's smiling because Mommy's happy, and Emma's smiling because you're not sad anymore. Ethan looked up at him with those big, innocent eyes. Do you like it? Marcus stared at the drawing. A 6-year-old's interpretation of family, of heaven, of healing. His vision blurred. Marcus, Ethan's voice was worried. Why are you crying? Did I do something wrong? Marcus dropped to his knees and pulled the boy into a fierce hug. No, buddy. You did something perfect. His voice broke. This is the best gift anyone's ever given me. Really? Really? Ethan hugged him back. I'm glad you're not leaving. Lucas's dad left and Lucas is sad all the time. I didn't want you to leave too. I'm not leaving. Promise. Promise. Rachel watched from the doorway, tears streaming down her face. She didn't interrupt. Some moments were too sacred for words. After a long minute, Ethan pulled back. Can I have pancakes now? I showed my important thing. Pancakes are the deal. Marcus laughed a real laugh, raw and unpracticed. Pancakes sound good. Mommy's pancakes are burned, though. I heard that, Rachel called from the kitchen. It's true. The morning continued. Pancakes were made slightly burned, as predicted. Ethan ate 3 while telling stories about Lucas and school and a bug he'd found yesterday. Rachel and Marcus sat close together, their shoulders touching something unspoken passing between them. It felt like family. It felt like home. Later that afternoon, while Ethan napped, Rachel led Marcus into her bedroom. She opened a closet and pulled down a shoebox from the top shelf. There's something I need to show you, she said quietly. Something I probably should have shown you weeks ago. What is it? Rachel sat on the bed and opened the box. Inside were papers, notebooks, photographs. David kept journals from his work at the crisis center. She pulled out a worn notebook. After he died, I went through them. I was looking for, I don't know, some piece of him I hadn't known, some message he'd left for me. Did you find one? Not exactly. Rachel's hands trembled as she opened the notebook. I found something else, something about you. Marcus's blood went cold. What? Rachel turned to a page marked with a faded ribbon. 3 weeks before Emma died, someone called the crisis center. A young woman, 28 years old. History of substance abuse. Estranged from her father. Marcus couldn't move. David talked to her for 4 hours. Rachel continued, her voice thick. He wrote about it here. She told him about her childhood, about a father who was never there, about years of anger and resentment. Rachel, stop. He helped her, Marcus. He helped her see that holding on to anger was destroying her. He convinced her to try one more time. Rachel looked up, tears in her eyes. Her name was Emma. The world tilted. Marcus grabbed the bedpost to steady himself. No, that's not possible. It's true. I didn't make the connection until you told me your daughter's name. Then I went back and checked the dates. Rachel held out the notebook. David saved her that night. He gave her hope. She was going to reach out to you. But she died. Marcus's voice was barely a whisper. She died before she called you. Rachel's voice broke. The night she overdosed. She called you first. It's in the report. David he was trying to follow up with her and the center told him she'd passed. Marcus felt his legs give out. He sat heavily on the bed, the notebook clutched in his hands. She called me. Yes. I never got. He stopped. Remembered. That night, 5 years ago. He'd turned his phone off. He'd been drinking. He'd been wallowing in self-pity like he always did. And his daughter had called. And he'd missed it. No, the word came out like a sob. No, no, no. Marcus, I could have saved her. His whole body was shaking. She called me. She was ready. And I was too drunk to answer my phone. Rachel wrapped her arms around him. You didn't know. I should have known. Marcus pulled away, standing abruptly. I should have been there. I should have answered. That's all she needed. One answered call, one conversation. And I couldn't even give her that. You're not responsible for her choices, Marcus. Yes, I am. I'm responsible for every choice she ever made because I wasn't there to help her make better ones. His voice cracked. She died alone, Rachel. My baby girl died alone in an apartment because her father was a selfish coward who couldn't put down a bottle long enough to answer his phone. He grabbed a lamp and hurled it against the wall. It shattered pieces scattering across the floor. Rachel didn't flinch. Feel better? She asked quietly. Marcus stared at the broken lamp. His hands were shaking. His chest heaved with ragged breaths. No. I didn't think so. Rachel stood and walked to him. David used to say that guilt is like quicksand. The more you struggle, the deeper you sink. Then what do? You stop struggling. She took his hands. You accept that you made mistakes, that you can't change them, that the only thing you can do now is live differently. How do I live differently when she's dead because of me? She's not dead because of you, Marcus. She's dead because addiction is a disease, because she didn't get the help she needed in time, because life is cruel and unfair, and sometimes people we love die before we can save them. But the call, would you have answered if you'd known, of course, then that's what matters. Rachel squeezed his hands. You didn't know. You couldn't have known. And beating yourself up for something you didn't know is just another way of staying stuck. Marcus looked at this woman. This impossibly strong, impossibly kind woman who had lost her own husband and somehow kept living, kept hoping, kept loving. How did you do it? He asked. After David died. How did you keep going, Ethan? The answer was immediate. I kept going for Ethan. And then slowly I started keeping going for myself. She smiled sadly. It's not about forgetting. It's about making room, making space for new joy alongside the old grief. I don't know if I can do that. You're already doing it. Rachel touched his face. You just don't see it yet. Downstairs, a door banged open. Mommy, Marcus, I'm awake. Can we go to the park? Rachel laughed softly. Duty calls. Rachel. Marcus caught her hand before she could leave. Thank you. for showing me that, for not giving up on me. I told you, I don't give up on people. Neither did David. She kissed his cheek. That's why he helped Emma that night, and that's why I'm helping you now. She left to tend to Ethan. Marcus stood alone in the bedroom, the notebook still in his hands. He opened it to the page Rachel had marked. David's handwriting was neat, careful. Marcus read slowly, drinking in every word. Emma T., 28. Father absent. Mother deceased. History of heroin use. Called tonight in crisis. Spent 4 hours talking her through. She's angry at her father, at herself, at the world. But underneath the anger is love. So much love. She wants to reconnect with him. She's scared he'll reject her again. I told her that reaching out is the bravest thing anyone can do, that her father might surprise her. She's going to try. I believe in her. Marcus's tears fell onto the page, blurring the ink. I told her that reaching out is the bravest thing anyone can do. David had given his daughter hope, and Marcus had let that hope die unanswered. But David had also given him something else. A gift Marcus didn't deserve. A second family. A second chance. He closed the notebook and walked downstairs. Ethan was bouncing by the front door, already in his jacket. Can we go? Can we go? Can we go? Rachel was gathering her keys, smiling at her son's impatience. Marcus watched them for a moment. This woman and her boy who had saved him in ways they'd never understand. Actually, Marcus said slowly, I was thinking we could go somewhere else first, if that's okay. Rachel looked at him. Where? Emma's grave. His voice was steady. I haven't been since, well, I haven't been in a while, and I think it's time. Ethan's bouncing stopped. Can I come? I want to meet Emma. Ethan, honey, Emma's not really. She's in heaven, I know. Ethan's face was serious. But I can still say hi, like I say hi to Daddy at his grave. You can talk to people even if they're not here. They can hear you. Marcus felt his throat tighten. Yeah, buddy, you can come. The drive to the cemetery was quiet. Ethan sat in the back seat, unusually still, seeming to understand the gravity of the moment. When they arrived, Marcus led them through the rows of headstones until they reached the simple marker he'd visited so many times before. Emma Rose Thompson, beloved daughter, gone too soon. Marcus stood before it, unable to speak. Rachel hung back, holding Ethan's hand. Can I go say hi? Ethan whispered. Rachel looked at Marcus, who nodded. Ethan walked forward and knelt by the headstone with the casual ease of a child who's done this before. Hi, Emma, he said. I'm Ethan. I'm 6 3/4. I'm friends with your daddy. Well, he's not really my daddy, but he's like a daddy. Or maybe a grandpa. He has gray hair like a grandpa. Marcus choked out a laugh, despite himself. Anyway, Ethan continued, your daddy is really nice. He was sad for a long time, but he's getting better. My mommy helps him, and I help him too. I gave him a tissue once when he was crying. That's how we met. The boy paused, thinking. I bet you're friends with my daddy up there. His name is David. He's really tall and he has a funny laugh. Tell him I said hi and that I miss him, but I'm okay. Mommy's okay too. She cries sometimes, but she's happy more than she's sad now. Ethan reached out and touched the headstone gently. Your daddy talks about you a lot. He loves you really much. I can tell because his eyes get all watery when he says your name. He lowered his voice conspiratorially. Don't tell him I told you that. It's supposed to be a secret. Rachel was crying silently. Marcus couldn't move. Okay, I think that's all. Ethan stood up and brushed off his knees. Oh wait, one more thing. I drew a picture of you and my daddy in heaven. You're both smiling. I'll bring it next time so you can see. He walked back to Rachel and took her hand. "Your turn, Marcus." Marcus looked at the headstone. All the words he'd never said pressed against his chest. "I'll give you some time," Rachel said quietly. "We'll wait by the car." She and Ethan walked away, leaving Marcus alone with his daughter. For a long moment he just stood there. The silence felt heavy. Then slowly he knelt down. "Hey, baby girl." His voice cracked immediately. "I know it's been a while. I know I should have come sooner. I couldn't. Every time I tried, the guilt was so heavy I couldn't breathe." He wiped his face roughly. "I found out something today. About the night you died. About the call you made to me." His voice broke. "I'm so sorry I didn't answer, Emma. I'm so sorry I wasn't there. I've been saying sorry my whole life, and it never means anything because I keep making the same mistakes." A breeze stirred the grass around him. "But I met someone. Actually, someone met me. A little boy named Ethan. He's 6. He walked up to me in a park when I was crying and offered me a tissue. Can you believe that 6 years old, and he had more courage than I've ever had?" Marcus laughed sadly. "His mom's pretty great too. Her name's Rachel. Her husband died a couple years ago. And here's the crazy part, her husband was the one who talked to you that night. The crisis center guy, David. He gave you hope. He believed in you when I couldn't even answer my phone." He placed his hand on the cold stone. "I don't know if you can hear me, Emma. I don't know if any of this matters anymore. But I want you to know that I'm trying. For the first time in my life, I'm really trying to be better. Not for me. For them. For you." His voice dropped to a whisper. "I'm never going to stop loving you, baby girl. I'm never going to stop being sorry. But I'm also never going to stop trying to earn the second chance you never got to give me." He stood slowly, his knees aching. "I'll come back soon. I promise. And next time, I won't be alone." He turned and walked back toward the car where Rachel and Ethan were waiting. Ethan ran to meet him. "Did you say hi?" "Yeah, buddy, I said hi." "Did she say anything back?" Marcus thought about the breeze, about the peace that had settled over him, about the weight that had lifted from his chest. "Yeah," he said. "I think she did." Ethan grabbed his hand. "Good. That means she's not mad at you anymore. When people in heaven stop being mad, they send wind. My daddy told me that." Rachel joined them, her eyes red, but her smile warm. "Ready to go home, home." The word felt different now. Fuller. Realer. "Yeah," Marcus said. "I'm ready." As they walked back to the car, Ethan chattering about everything and nothing, Marcus felt something shift inside him. The guilt was still there. It would always be there. But it wasn't crushing him anymore. David had saved Emma's life for one more night. Emma had tried to save herself by reaching out. And now Rachel and Ethan were saving Marcus by refusing to let him drown. The cycle of grief was breaking. The cycle of healing was beginning. And for the first time in 5 years, Marcus believed he might actually survive it. His phone buzzed. A text from Tom Bradley. "Town council meeting tonight. They want to honor you. Something about a community service award. You in?" Marcus stared at the message. A community service award. For him. The man who'd spent 40 years terrorizing communities. He showed Rachel the text. She smiled. "What do you think?" "I think it's insane." "Is that a no?" Marcus looked at Ethan, who was trying to catch a butterfly and failing spectacularly. "No," he said slowly. "That's not a no." "Then what is it?" Marcus put his phone away and took Rachel's hand. "It's a maybe, and apparently maybe means yes." Rachel laughed and leaned into him, and somewhere above them Marcus could have sworn he heard his daughter laugh too. 1 year later, Marcus stood in the doorway of his motorcycle repair shop, watching the morning light filter through the windows. Second Chance Cycles. That's what he'd named it. Rachel had suggested it, and Ethan had drawn the logo, a rough sketch of a motorcycle with wings that Marcus had turned into the sign hanging above the door. The shop had opened 6 months ago, funded by the sale of his apartment, and every dollar he'd saved during his years with the club. It wasn't much. Just a small garage on the edge of town, with enough space for 3 lifts and a waiting area. But it was his. Honestly earned. Honestly run. And it was changing lives. "Marcus," a voice called from under a lifted Harley. "Can you hand me the socket wrench?" Marcus grabbed the tool and walked over. Beneath the bike was Danny, 19 years old, fresh out of juvenile detention for assault. 3 months ago, the kid had been headed straight back to prison. Now he was learning to rebuild engines. "You're getting better," Marcus said, handing over the wrench. "You think so? I know so. That carburetor yesterday, clean work." Danny's face flushed with pride, a look Marcus recognized. The look of someone who'd never been told they were good at anything. "My parole officer came by yesterday," Danny said, sliding out from under the bike. "He couldn't believe it, said I was a different person." "Are you?" Danny considered the question. "I don't know, maybe. I feel different." "That's a start." The shop door opened, and Marcus turned to see Tom Bradley walking in, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "Morning, Ghost." Tom handed him a cup. "How's the business?" "Slow but steady. Got 3 bikes in the queue and 2 more coming tomorrow." "Not bad for a reformed outlaw." Marcus snorted. "Reformed is a strong word." "It's the right word." Tom's voice was serious now. "You know the town council's been talking about you again. What now? They want to take back my community service award. Opposite. They want to expand the program. What you're doing here with Danny, they want to fund it. Turn it into a proper rehabilitation initiative. Training housing assistants, the whole thing." Marcus stared at him. "You're joking." "Do I look like I'm joking? I'm a convicted felon, Tom. I've got more rap sheets than most people have birthday cards. And now you're giving kids like Danny a second chance. Turns out that matters more than your past." Tom clapped him on the shoulder. "Think about it. Meeting's next Tuesday." He left before Marcus could respond. Danny had been listening from across the shop. "That's pretty cool, Marcus. You could help a lot of people." "I'm just one guy with a garage." "Yeah, but you're a guy who gets it." Danny wiped his hands on a rag. "When I was inside, all the counselors talked about rehabilitation, programs, resources, but none of them had ever been where I'd been. They didn't understand. And I do. You've got tattoos from a motorcycle gang, a criminal record, and you still turned your life around. That's not a pamphlet. That's proof." Marcus didn't know what to say to that, so he just nodded and went back to work. Around noon, the shop door burst open again. "Marcus!" Ethan came running in, backpack bouncing, face split with his characteristic grin. Behind him, Rachel followed at a more reasonable pace, carrying a paper bag. "Hey, buddy." Marcus knelt to catch Ethan's hug. "How was school?" "Good. We learned about volcanoes. Did you know they can explode and make the whole sky dark?" "That's so cool." "That does sound cool." Also, Lucas said his dad could fix motorcycles too, but I said my Marcus is better, and Lucas said, "Who's Marcus?" And I said, "My almost daddy." And then Lucas got confused. Rachel caught Marcus's eye over Ethan's head. Her expression was soft, amused. "Almost daddy," Marcus repeated. "Well, you're not my real daddy because my real daddy is in heaven. But you're like a daddy, so almost daddy." Ethan said it like it was the most obvious logic in the world. "Is that okay?" Marcus felt his throat tighten. "Yeah, buddy, that's more than okay." "Good, because I told my whole class and now everyone knows." Ethan spotted Danny across the shop. "Hey, Danny, want to see my volcano drawing?" He ran off, leaving Marcus and Rachel alone. "Almost, Daddy," Rachel said, smiling. "You've been promoted." "Apparently." Marcus stood. "You heard about the town council thing?" "Tom called me. I think it's wonderful." "It's insane is what it is." "Why?" "Because you don't think you deserve it. Because I spent 40 years being exactly the kind of person these kids need to avoid." Rachel set the paper bag on his workbench. "And now you're exactly the kind of person who can help them not make the same mistakes." "That's not insane, Marcus. That's the whole point." "The point of what?" "Redemption." She touched his face. "You don't erase the past. You transform it. You take everything broken and ugly and painful and you turn it into something that helps other people." "When did you get so wise?" "I'm a nurse. Wisdom comes with the territory." She kissed his cheek. "Now eat your lunch. I made your favorite." "Let me guess. Burned sandwiches." "They're not burned. They're caramelized." Marcus laughed. A real laugh, easy and natural. Something that had become more frequent over the past year. "I love you," he said. The words came out before he could stop them. He'd been thinking them for months but hadn't said them aloud. Rachel's eyes widened. "What? I love you." Saying it twice felt easier. "I know that's probably too fast or too much or—" Rachel kissed him. Hard. Fierce. Right there in the middle of his shop with Danny and Ethan watching. When she pulled back, her eyes were shining. "I love you too," she said. "I've loved you since you showed up at my door for dinner and looked at spaghetti like it was a foreign concept. To be fair, I hadn't eaten a home-cooked meal in about 5 years. I know. That's part of why I loved you. You looked so lost. And then Ethan grabbed your hand and dragged you to the table and you just let him. This big, scary biker letting a 6-year-old boss him around. He's very persuasive. He learned it from his father?" Rachel's voice caught. "David would have loved this, you know. Seeing you like this. Seeing us like this. You think, I know." She pulled out the notebook she'd shown him months ago, David's notebook. "I read through more of his entries. The night he talked to Emma, he wrote something at the end. I didn't show you before because I wasn't sure you were ready." She opened to a page near the back and handed it to Marcus. His eyes moved over David's neat handwriting. Emma T. finally agreed to call her father. She's scared but hopeful. I believe in her. I believe in the power of one conversation to change everything. If her father answers, if he just listens, they might find their way back to each other. And if they do, maybe it will prove what I've always believed, that no one is beyond redemption. That love is stronger than time or distance or pain. That the broken pieces of our lives can become the foundation for something beautiful. Marcus's hands trembled. "David believed in her," Rachel said softly. "And now, through Ethan and me, he believes in you too." "He never even met me." "He didn't have to. He knew you through Emma. He knew the man she wanted you to be. And Marcus," Rachel took his face in her hands, "you've become that man. I wish David could see it. I wish Emma could see it. But since they can't, I'm going to keep telling you until you believe it yourself." Marcus pulled her close, holding on like she was the only solid thing in a shifting world. "I'm going to marry you someday," he murmured into her hair. Rachel laughed softly. "Is that a proposal?" "It's a promise." "Then I accept." She pulled back, smiling through tears. "But let's get through Ethan's birthday party first. He's been planning it for 3 months." "What's the theme again?" "Motorcycles. Obviously." Marcus groaned. "I'm going to have to give rides, aren't I? Very slow, very safe rides around the parking lot. He's already made tickets." "Of course he has." "Mommy, Marcus." Ethan's voice cut through. Danny said a bad word. Rachel sighed. Duty calls. She went to handle the crisis, leaving Marcus alone with the notebook. He read David's words again. Then again. That the broken pieces of our lives can become the foundation for something beautiful. Beautiful. Was that what this was? He looked around the shop, at Danny, who was apologizing to Ethan for his language, at Rachel, who was trying not to laugh, at Ethan, who was already distracted by something shiny on Danny's workbench. A year ago, Marcus had sat on a park bench with a letter in his pocket, ready to end everything. Now he had a business, a family, a future. All because a 6-year-old boy had walked toward a crying stranger instead of away from him. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Marcus tensed automatically old habits, but the message wasn't threatening. This is Emma's mother, Lisa. I heard what you're doing in Ridgewood. I'm proud of you. She would be too. Marcus stared at the screen. Lisa. His ex-wife, the woman who'd taken Emma and disappeared. The woman he'd blamed for everything for 20 years. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. 1,000 responses ran through his mind. Finally, he typed, "Thank you. I'm sorry for everything." The reply came quickly. "I know. Me too." 3 words. 2 decades of pain. 1 moment of grace. Marcus put his phone away and went back to work. The days leading up to Ethan's birthday passed quickly. Marcus found himself caught up in preparations he didn't understand, balloon colors, cake flavors, something called a bounce house that apparently required insurance. "I never had parties like this," he told Rachel the night before. "My old man thought birthdays were a waste of money." "What did you do instead?" "Usually hid in my room and hoped he'd forgotten." Marcus shrugged. "It's fine. It was a long time ago." "It's not fine." Rachel took his hand. "But it means you get to experience it now. Through Ethan. Through us. I'm 58 years old, Rachel. So joy doesn't have an age limit." The party itself was chaos. 20 kids from Ethan's class, plus their parents, plus half the town who'd somehow gotten invited. Tom Bradley was there. Danny came with his parole officer, who looked deeply uncomfortable but stayed anyway. Even the nurses from Rachel's hospital showed up with a card signed by the whole ICU staff. Marcus stood at the edge of it all, watching Ethan tear through presents with the enthusiasm only a 7-year-old could muster. 7. The kid was 7 now. "Marcus?" Ethan spotted him and came running, clutching a box. "Look what Lucas got me. It's a model motorcycle. Can you help me build it?" "Sure, buddy." "Now, it's your party. Don't you want to? I want to build the motorcycle with you." Ethan grabbed his hand. "Please, the other stuff is boring." Marcus let himself be dragged to a quiet corner where they sat on the floor and opened the box. "You know," Ethan said, sorting through the pieces, "I asked for this specifically." "You asked Lucas to get you a model motorcycle?" "No. I asked Mommy to make sure you were here for my birthday." Ethan's voice was matter-of-fact. "Last year you weren't here. And the year before that. And all the years before that. So I wanted to make sure." Marcus felt his chest tighten. "Buddy, I didn't know you existed 2 years ago." "I know. But I wished for you anyway." Ethan looked up with those big brown eyes. "Every birthday I wished for someone to be like a daddy, because my real daddy was gone and Mommy was sad all the time. I thought maybe if we had someone, she'd stop being so sad." "Ethan, and then you came." The boy smiled. "At the park, crying on that bench, and I thought maybe he's sad too. Maybe we can be sad together and then be happy together." Marcus couldn't speak. His throat had closed completely. Was I right? Ethan asked. Are you happy now? Marcus pulled the boy into a hug so tight that Ethan squeaked. Yeah, buddy. His voice came out rough, broken. You were right. I'm happy now. Good. Ethan pulled back, grinning. Can we build the motorcycle now? I want to show Lucas it's done before he leaves. Yeah. Marcus wiped his face quickly. Let's build it. They sat together on the floor, a 58-year-old former outlaw and a 7-year-old boy piecing together a toy motorcycle while a party swirled around them. It was, Marcus thought, the best birthday he'd ever been to. Later that night, after the guests had gone, and Ethan had crashed from sugar exhaustion, Marcus sat on the porch with Rachel. That was something, he said. It was perfect. Rachel leaned against him. Ethan told me what he said to you. About wishing for you. Kid's going to be the death of me, in a good way. He's special. I know. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Rachel, there's something I need to do. Tomorrow. Will you come with me, you and Ethan? Where? Emma's grave. It's been a year since everything. I want to talk to her. Really talk to her. And I want you both there. Rachel squeezed his hand. Of course. The next morning, they drove to the cemetery together. Ethan held Marcus's hand as they walked through the rows of headstones. He'd brought the crayon drawing he'd made a year ago, the one with Emma and David in heaven, carefully laminated, now edges worn from being looked at. When they reached Emma's grave, Marcus stood in silence for a long moment. Then he knelt down. Hey, baby girl. His voice was steadier than it had been the last time. I brought some people to meet you. Properly this time. Rachel stepped forward, her hand on Ethan's shoulder. This is Rachel, Marcus continued. She's the woman I told you about. The one who didn't run when she found out who I was. The one who saw something in me that I couldn't see myself. So he reached up and took Rachel's hand. And this is Ethan. He's 7 now. Just had his birthday. Marcus smiled, despite the tears. He's the one who saved me, Emma. That day in the park, when I was ready to give up. He walked right up to me with a tissue and asked why I was sad. No fear, no judgment, just kindness. Ethan stepped forward, holding out the laminated drawing. Hi, Emma, he said. I made this for you. See, that's you and my daddy. You're both smiling because you're friends now. I know you are because Marcus told me you're both really nice. He placed the drawing at the base of the headstone. I'm taking care of your daddy now, Ethan continued. Me and my mommy. We make sure he eats and sleeps and doesn't work too much. He's really happy. I can tell because he laughs a lot now. He didn't laugh when I met him. He just cried. But that's okay, because sometimes you have to cry before you can laugh. Marcus felt the tears streaming down his face, but he didn't wipe them away. I wish I could meet you for real, Ethan said. But it's okay that you're in heaven. My daddy's there too, so you have a friend. And Marcus says you like to sing, so maybe you can sing songs together. My daddy couldn't sing very good, but he tried really hard. Rachel was crying now, too silently, her hand tight on Marcus's shoulder. Okay, I think that's all. Ethan stepped back. Bye, Emma. I'll come visit again soon. Marcus comes a lot, but sometimes I think he doesn't know what to say. I'll help him. Marcus pulled the boy close. Thank you, buddy, he whispered. You're welcome. Ethan hugged him back. Can I go look at the butterflies? There are some really cool ones over there. Go ahead. Stay where we can see you. Ethan ran off, already distracted by the natural world. Rachel knelt beside Marcus. You okay? Yeah. He looked at Emma's headstone. I think I finally am. Do you want to say anything else I can give you space? No. Stay. Marcus took a breath. I want her to hear this. He turned back to the grave. Emma, I spent 20 years running from who I was. And then I spent 5 years running from who I'd become. I thought if I punished myself enough, if I suffered enough, maybe it would balance the scales. He shook his head. But that's not how it works. Suffering doesn't fix anything. It just makes more suffering. The only thing that heals is love. Connection. Letting people in even when it terrifies you. He placed his hand on the cold stone. I can't change what happened. I can't bring you back. But I can honor your memory by living differently. By being the father I should have been, not to you because it's too late for that, but to others. To kids like Danny who need someone to believe in them. To Ethan who believed in me before I gave him any reason to. His voice cracked. I'm going to marry Rachel. I'm going to raise Ethan as my own. I'm going to build something good with the time I have left. And every single day I'm going to remember that I got this second chance because a little boy walked toward pain instead of away from it. He stood slowly, his knees aching. I love you, Emma. I always will. And I'm sorry it took me so long to become someone worth loving back. Rachel wrapped her arm around his waist. Together they stood before the grave, watching the wind stir the grass, listening to Ethan's distant laughter as he chased butterflies. She's at peace, Rachel said quietly. I can feel it. Yeah, Marcus nodded. I think she finally is. They stayed for a while longer, not speaking, just being. Then Ethan ran back, breathless and grinning. Marcus, Mommy, I caught a butterfly. Well, I didn't catch it, but I touched it, and it didn't fly away. That means good luck, right? That's right, buddy. So we're going to have a lucky day. Marcus looked at Rachel, at Ethan, at the grave of his daughter, and the drawing of two souls in heaven. We already are, buddy. He lifted Ethan onto his shoulders. We already are. They walked back to the car together, a family forged not from blood, but from choice. From pain transformed into purpose. From broken pieces made whole. 6 months later, Marcus and Rachel married in a small ceremony at Ridgewood Memorial Park. The same park where everything had begun. Tom Bradley officiated. Danny was Marcus's best man. Ethan served as ring bearer, walking down the aisle, with careful concentration, determined not to drop the precious cargo. The whole town came. Nurses and veterans and teachers and parents. People who had once crossed the street to avoid Marcus now embraced him, congratulating him, welcoming him into their community. When it came time for vows, Marcus spoke without notes. I spent 40 years building walls, he said, holding Rachel's hands. I thought they kept me safe. Instead, they kept me alone. And then your son walked through every wall I'd ever built like they weren't even there. He saw me crying and offered me a tissue. He saw a monster and saw a person instead. Rachel was crying, smiling, both at once. I don't know why I got this chance, Marcus continued. I didn't earn it. I didn't deserve it. But I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of it. Of you, of Ethan, of the family you've given me. He squeezed her hands. I love you, Rachel. I love your son. I love this town that took in a broken outlaw and gave him a reason to live. And I promise for whatever time I have left to protect this family with everything I am. Rachel spoke her vows through tears, her voice steady despite the emotion. And when Tom pronounced them married, Ethan cheered louder than anyone. Finally, the boy shouted. Now Marcus is my real almost daddy. The crowd laughed. Marcus scooped Ethan up in one arm and pulled Rachel close with the other. How do you feel, almost daddy? Rachel whispered. Marcus looked at his wife, his son, his community. Complete, he said. For the first time in my life, I feel complete. That night after the reception, Marcus sat on a bench at the edge of the park. The same bench where Ethan had found him crying. The same bench where he'd planned to end his life. Now it was just a bench, just wood and metal and peeling paint. No longer a symbol of despair, but a marker of transformation. Rachel found him there, Ethan asleep in her arms. Room for 2 more. Marcus shifted, and she sat beside him, adjusting Ethan's weight. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "That day, when I came here to die." Marcus's voice was quiet, but not sad. "I had the letter in my pocket. I'd said my goodbyes. I was ready. And then Ethan happened. And then Ethan happened." Marcus looked at the sleeping boy. 7 years old, and he saved my life. Didn't even know he was doing it. Just saw someone hurting and decided to help. That's who he is. That's who David raised him to be. Marcus met Rachel's eyes. I read more of the notebook. David's philosophy, his belief that everyone deserves compassion, that kindness is a choice we make every day. He lived that belief. So does Ethan. So do you. Marcus took her hand. And now, God help me, so do I. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars emerge. Marcus, yeah, thank you. For what? For not giving up that day. For letting a 6-year-old boy with a tissue change your mind. Rachel's voice caught. For choosing to live. Marcus thought about all the roads that had led to this moment. The violence and the loss and the grief. The years of running and hiding and hating himself. The letter that had almost been his last words. And then the tissue. The small hand. The innocent voice that had shattered every wall he'd built. I didn't choose anything that day, Marcus said honestly. Ethan chose for me. He walked toward the pain when everyone else would have walked away. He showed me that I was worth saving even when I didn't believe it. He looked at his sleeping son, because that's what Ethan was now, his son, in every way that mattered. I spent my whole life being a ghost, Marcus said. Haunting the people I loved. Disappearing when they needed me, leaving nothing behind but pain. He pulled Rachel and Ethan closer. But ghosts can change. Turns out anyone can change. All it takes is one person who refuses to give up on you. Rachel kissed his cheek. Welcome back to the living Marcus Thompson. Marcus smiled the easy smile that had become so natural over the past year. Good to be here. They stayed on the bench until the stars filled the sky. 3 people who'd found each other through grief and emerged into joy. A family written not in blood, but in choice, in courage, in the simple, radical act of walking toward someone in pain. And if David and Emma were watching from somewhere beyond the stars, Marcus hoped they could see what their love had built. A home for the broken. A haven for the lost. A proof that no life is ever too far gone to be saved. Years later, people in Ridgewood would still tell the story. The story of the outlaw and the nurse and the little boy with the tissue. They'd tell it to newcomers and visitors, to children and grandchildren, to anyone who needed to hear that redemption was possible. And the story always ended the same way. With a 6-year-old boy standing before a crying stranger in a park, holding out a crumpled tissue and saying the words that changed everything. Don't cry, mister. You can borrow my mom. Because sometimes the smallest hands carry the biggest grace. And sometimes all it takes to save a life is the courage to walk toward the pain.